What if the most private conversation you ever had suddenly became a weapon in a courtroom? That's exactly what happened to BTS's Kim Taehyung, and what he said next left the entire ARMY universe in complete shock. Welcome to Celeb World Insight, the #1 destination for everything K-pop, K-drama, and all things Hallyu. I'm your host, and today we are diving deep into one of the most jaw-dropping stories to rock the K-pop world in recent memory. We're talking about BTS's Kim Taehyung, also known as V, one of the most beloved, private, and genuinely guarded celebrities on the planet. A man who rarely steps into drama, rarely raises his voice, and almost never gets pulled into controversy. But this time, he had no choice. Because somehow, some way, a deeply personal, private conversation between Taehyung and HYBE's now infamous former director Min Hee-jin ended up as legal evidence in one of the biggest legal battles K-pop has ever seen. Stay locked in, because we're breaking this down moment by moment, reaction by reaction, and trust me, you will not want to miss a single second. Let's set the scene. It's the peak of HYBE versus ADOR legal war, one of the most explosive corporate battles in K-pop history. On one side, HYBE, the entertainment giant behind BTS, New Jeans, and a dozen other top-tier acts. On the other, Min Hee-jin, the creative genius and former ADOR CEO, who claimed HYBE was trying to push her out. The courtroom drama was already at boiling point, but then something happened that nobody expected. Legal documents submitted to the court contained private text messages exchanged between Min Hee-jin and Kim Taehyung, personal, intimate, completely out of context. Fans lost their minds the moment the news broke. The hashtag #ProtectTaehyung trended worldwide within hours. ARMY flooded social media demanding answers. How did a private conversation between two people become courtroom ammunition? This moment left ARMY absolutely speechless, and it was only the beginning. Now you're probably asking, what exactly did these messages say? And that, dear viewers, is where things get even more interesting. The messages reportedly showed Taehyung and Min Hee-jin engaging in what appeared to be warm, friendly conversation, the kind of casual closeness you'd expect between two creative individuals who respected each other deeply within the same company. But here's the thing, context is everything. What reads as friendly banter between colleagues in private can look wildly different when it's stripped of context and placed under a legal microscope. ARMY immediately pointed this out. Fans, legal experts, and Korean media commentators all noted that submitting these texts raised serious ethical and legal questions about privacy rights. You won't believe how quickly this became a national conversation in South Korea about celebrity privacy, not just K-pop drama. Which moment is hitting hardest for you so far? Drop a comment below. We're reading every single one. If there's one thing you never do, it's underestimate the power of BTS's fanbase. And when ARMY caught wind that Taehyung's private messages had been pulled into a legal fight without his full consent, they ignited. Within 24 hours, ARMY had produced thousands of posts demanding accountability. Fan accounts with millions of followers published detailed threads breaking down the legal timeline. The hashtag Taehyung deserves better, Protect V from HYBE, and Justice for Taehyung trended simultaneously across Twitter, Weverse, and Instagram. Fans went absolutely crazy, and honestly, can you blame them? Korean media picked up the fan outrage almost immediately. It wasn't just an online moment anymore. It became a legitimate news story about whether public figures surrender their right to private communication simply because of their fame. Heavy stuff. But Taehyung hadn't spoken yet, and ARMY was waiting. And then it happened. After days of speculation, rumors, and fan panic, Kim Taehyung spoke out. In a statement that rippled across every corner of the internet, Taehyung addressed the situation with a kind of calm, measured dignity that honestly only he could deliver in a moment this charged. He made clear that the conversation had been private, something shared in trust, and that seeing it used in a public legal proceeding was deeply uncomfortable. Without attacking anyone directly, his words carried unmistakable weight. He communicated that he had been placed in an impossible position, caught between personal relationships and a corporate war that he had never asked to be a part of. This moment left ARMY in tears, because here was Taehyung, always so careful, always so private, suddenly forced into the spotlight of a legal storm. The response was overwhelming. Weverse crashed briefly from the volume of fan activity. International media, from Billboard to The Guardian, picked up the story. Kim Taehyung had officially entered the conversation, and the world was listening. Now here's where the story gets genuinely emotional, because at the heart of all this legal chaos is what appears to have been a real, genuine friendship. Min Hee-jin isn't just any industry executive. She's the visionary behind some of K-pop's most iconic aesthetics. Within HYBE, Taehyung and Min Hee-jin reportedly connected over shared creative sensibilities, a mutual appreciation for art, fashion, and authenticity. And that's exactly what made this so heartbreaking for fans. The messages weren't scandalous, they weren't damaging, they were just human, two people talking, and yet somehow those words ended up in a courtroom. Fans went from shocked to heartbroken when they realized this wasn't just corporate drama, it was a real friendship being pulled apart in public. The moral question that ARMY kept raising, does fame mean you forfeit your right to private relationships? It's a question without an easy answer, and one that resonated far beyond the K-pop fandom. Share this video with your ARMY friends, because this story deserves to be told fully. Moving into our next chapter, and this one blew everyone away because of how far the ripple effects traveled. Legal analysts in South Korea began publicly debating whether the submission of Taehyung's private texts was legally appropriate. In South Korea, privacy laws around personal communications are taken seriously, and several commentators questioned whether the messages were obtained and submitted in a manner consistent with those protections. Meanwhile, HYBE's public image took a hit. Already navigating the PR nightmare of the Min Hee-jin saga, the company now found itself defending the use of a beloved BTS member's private words as a legal tool.
You won't believe how quickly this shifted from a K-pop story to a story about corporate power, celebrity privacy, and the ethics of fame. For Taehyung, currently fulfilling his mandatory military service, this was especially difficult. He had no public platform to fully respond, no stage to stand on, just words, carefully chosen, released into a world on fire. This wasn't just a K-pop story anymore. Global outlets, including Rolling Stone, BBC Culture, NME, and The Hollywood Reporter, all covered the story. The narrative had evolved from a K-pop label dispute into something far more universal, celebrity privacy in the digital age. Journalists began citing Taehyung's case alongside broader conversations about how courts, corporations, and media increasingly use celebrities' private communications as weapons, and how almost no one, no matter how famous or protected, is immune. Fans went crazy seeing Taehyung's name on mainstream international news, not for a Grammy, not for a new album, for fighting for his basic right to privacy. ARMY used this moment powerfully, flooding comment sections of every major article to provide context, nuance, and support. The organized fan response itself became a secondary story, a testament to the unique power of BTS's global community. And honestly, this next part is the most emotional for ARMY. Throughout this entire saga, what struck people most wasn't the drama, it was how Taehyung handled it. No explosive outburst, no social media war, no mudslinging, just a quiet, dignified statement that said everything it needed to say without burning anyone to the ground. That restraint, that grace, it reminded the world why Kim Taehyung commands such fierce loyalty. This moment left ARMY more protective of him than ever, because he showed the world who he truly is, even under impossible pressure. Fan accounts began compiling tribute threads. Artists created fan art depicting Taehyung as a figure of calm in the storm. The phrase, "Taehyung deserves the world," trended globally, not in grief, but in celebration of his character. Which BTS member's handling of a controversy impressed you most? Tell us in the comments. Now let's look forward, because this story is not over. As of now, the HYBE versus ADOR legal proceedings continue to evolve. The use of Taehyung's messages remains a contested point. Privacy advocates in South Korea have called for clearer legal protections around celebrity communications, and Taehyung, upon completing his military service, will return to a K-pop landscape permanently changed by this saga. Will HYBE and their artists ever fully reconcile the trust damaged by this moment? Will Min Hee-jin's legal battle ultimately vindicate or condemn her? And most importantly, will Kim Taehyung address this more fully when he's back on the public stage? You won't believe how many industry insiders say this case could actually change Korean entertainment law. The implications are massive. And finally, the moment that ties everything together. Kim Taehyung's story isn't just a celebrity scandal. It isn't just K-pop drama. It is a deeply human story about what happens when fame strips away the walls we build around the parts of ourselves we hold most sacred. He didn't ask to be in that courtroom. He didn't ask for his words to be weaponized. He simply trusted, and that trust was broken in the most public way imaginable. And yet, here he is, still standing, still dignified, still somehow an example to millions of people around the world about how to carry yourself when the world is watching and the odds are against you. Fans went from worried to inspired, because if Taehyung can face this with grace, maybe we can face our own storms the same way. That's the power of Kim Taehyung. That's why ARMY never leaves. And that's a wrap on one of the most emotionally charged stories in recent K-pop history. BTS's Kim Taehyung, his private words, a courtroom, and the dignity that made the whole world stop and pay attention. If this story moved you, if it made you think, if it reminded you why you love Kim Taehyung, hit that like button right now. Subscribe to Celeb World Insight so you never miss a story like this, and ring that notification bell because trust me, we are just getting started. Which moment hit you hardest today? Let us know in the comments below, and share this video with every ARMY in your life.